Overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii.
The overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii refers to a coup d'état on January 17, 1893, in which anti-monarchical insurgents within the Kingdom of Hawaii, composed largely of United States citizens, engineered the overthrow of its native monarch, Queen Lili'uokalani. Hawaii was initially reconstituted as an independent republic, but the ultimate goal of the revolutionaries was the annexation of the islands to the United States, which was finally accomplished in 1898.
Summary of the event.
On July 6, 1846, U.S. Secretary of State John C. Calhoun, on behalf of President Tyler, afforded formal recognition of Hawaiian independence. As a result of the recognition of Hawaiian independence, the Hawaiian Kingdom entered into treaties with the major nations of the world and established over 90 legations and consulates in multiple seaports and cities. Though there were threats to Hawaii's sovereignty throughout the kingdom's history, it was not until the signing of the Bayonet Constitution in 1887 that this threat began to be realized. On January 17, 1893, the last monarch of the Kingdom of Hawaii, Queen Lili'uokalani, was deposed in a coup d'état led by 7 non-native subjects of the Hawaiian Kingdom, 5 American nationals, 1 English national, and 1 German national, all who were living and doing business in Hawaii and opposed to her attempt to establish a new constitution. The coup efforts were supported by American Minister to Hawaii John L. Stevens and the invasion of U.S. Marines, who came ashore at the request of the conspirators. The coup left the Queen imprisoned at Iolani Palace under house arrest. It briefly became the Republic of Hawaii, before eventual seizure by the United States in 1898. The overthrow was led by Lorin A. Thurston, a grandson of American missionaries, who derived his support primarily from the American and European business class residing in Hawaii and other supporters of the Reform Party of the Hawaiian Kingdom. Most of the leaders of the Committee of Safety that deposed the Queen were American and European citizens who were also kingdom subjects. They included legislators, government officers, and a Supreme Court Justice of the Hawaiian Kingdom. According to the Queen's book, her friend and Minister J.S. Walker came and told me that he had come on a painful duty, that the opposition party had requested that I should abdicate. After consulting with her ministers, including Walker, the Queen concluded that since the troops of the United States had been landed to support the revolutionists, by the order of the American minister, it would be impossible for us to make any resistance. Due to the Queen's desire to avoid any collision of armed forces, and perhaps the loss of life for her subjects, and after some deliberation, at the urging of advisers and friends, the Queen ordered her forces to surrender. Despite repeated claims that the overthrow was bloodless, the Queen's book notes that Lili'uokalani received friends expressed their sympathy in person. Amongst these Mrs. J.S. Walker, who had lost her husband by the treatment he received from the hands of the insurgents. He was one of many who from persecution had succumbed to death. Immediate annexation was prevented by the eloquent speech given by President Grover Cleveland to Congress at this time, in which he stated that the military demonstration upon the soil of Honolulu was of itself an act of war. Unless made either with the consent of the government of Hawaii or for the bona fide purpose of protecting the imperiled lives and property of citizens of the United States. But there is no pretense of any such consent on the part of the government of the Queen. The existing government, instead of requesting the presence of an armed force, protested against it. There is as little basis for the pretense that forces were landed for the security of American life and property. If so, they would have been stationed in the vicinity of such property and so as to protect it, instead of at a distance and so as to command the Hawaiian government building and palace. When these armed men were landed, the city of Honolulu was in its customary orderly and peaceful condition. The Republic of Hawaii was nonetheless declared in 1894 by the same parties which had established the Provisional Government. Among them were Lorin A. Thurston, a drafter of the Bayonet Constitution, and Sanford Dole, who appointed himself president of the forcibly instated Republic on July 4, 1894. The Bayonet Constitution allowed the monarch to appoint cabinet ministers, but had stripped him of the power to dismiss them without approval from the legislature. Eligibility to vote was also altered, stipulating property value, defined in non-traditional terms, as a condition of voting eligibility. One result of this was the disenfranchisement of poor native Hawaiians and other ethnic groups who had previously had the right to vote. This guaranteed a voting monopoly by the landed aristocracy. Asians, who comprised a large proportion of the population, were stripped of their voting rights, as many Japanese and Chinese members of the population who had previously become naturalized as subjects of the kingdom, subsequently lost all voting rights. Many Americans and wealthy Europeans, in contrast, acquired full voting rights at this time, without the need for Hawaiian citizenship.
Lili'uokalani's Constitution.
In 1891, Kalakaua died and his sister Lili'uokalani assumed the throne in the middle of an economic crisis. The McKinley Act had crippled the Hawaiian sugar industry by reducing duties on imports from other countries, eliminating the previous Hawaiian advantage due to the Reciprocity Treaty of 1875. Many Hawaii businesses and citizens felt pressure from the loss of revenue. In response, Lili'uokalani proposed a lottery system to raise money for her government. Also proposed was a controversial opium licensing bill. Her ministers, and closest friends, were all opposed to this plan. They unsuccessfully tried to dissuade her from pursuing these initiatives, both of which came to be used against her in the brewing constitutional crisis. Lili'uokalani's chief desire was to restore power to the monarch by abrogating the 1887 Bayonet Constitution and promulgating a new one, an idea that seems to have been broadly supported by the Hawaiian population. The 1893 Constitution would have reduced suffrage by reducing some property requirements, and eliminated the voting privileges extended to European and American residents. It would have disfranchised many resident European and American businessmen who were not citizens of Hawaii. The Queen toured several of the islands on horseback, talking to the people about her ideas and receiving overwhelming support, including a lengthy petition in support of a new constitution. However, when the Queen informed her cabinet of her plans, they withheld their support due to an understanding of what her opponents' likely response to these plans would be. Besides the threatened loss of financial and political gain for European and American residents of Hawaii, business interests within the kingdom were concerned about the removal of foreign tariffs in the American sugar trade due to the McKinley Act, which effectively eliminated the favored status of Hawaiian sugar due to the Reciprocity Treaty. Annexation to the United States would provide Hawaii with the same sugar bounties as domestic producers, which would be a welcome side effect of ending the monarchy. One of the Queen's opponents who had been set on the goal of annexation to the United States for years before the coup was Lorrin Thurston, who led a small but powerful group.
Overthrow.
The precipitating event leading to the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii on January 17, 1893 was the attempt by Queen Lili'uokalani to promulgate a new constitution that would have strengthened the power of the monarch relative to the legislature, where Euro-American business elites held disproportionate power. This political situation had resulted from the so-called 1887 Bayonet Constitution. The stated goals of the conspirators, who were non-native Hawaiian Kingdom subjects, 5 American nationals, 1 English national, and 1 German national, were to depose the Queen, overthrow the monarchy, and seek Hawaii's annexation to the United States. On January 16, the Marshal of the Kingdom, Charles B. Wilson, was tipped off by detectives to the imminent planned coup. Wilson requested warrants to arrest the 13-member council, of the Committee of Safety, and put the kingdom under martial law. Because the members had strong political ties with United States Government Minister John L. Stevens, the requests were repeatedly denied by Attorney General Arthur P. Peterson and the Queen's cabinet, fearing if approved, the arrests would escalate the situation. After a failed negotiation with Thurston, Wilson began to collect his men for the confrontation. Wilson and Captain of the Royal Household Guard, Samuel Nowleen, had rallied a force of 496 men who were kept at hand to protect the Queen. The overthrow ignited on January 17 when a policeman was shot and wounded while trying to stop a wagon carrying weapons to the Honolulu Rifles, the paramilitary wing of the Committee of Safety led by Lorrin Thurston. The Committee of Safety feared the shooting would bring government forces to rout out the conspirators and stop the coup before it could begin. The Committee of Safety initiated the overthrow by organizing the Honolulu Rifles, made of about 1,500 armed local, non-native, men under their leadership, intending to depose Queen Lili'uokalani. The Rifles garrisoned Lili'uokalani Hill across the street from Iolani Palace and waited for the Queen's response. As these events were unfolding, the Committee of Safety expressed concern for the safety and property of American residents in Honolulu. United States Government Minister John L. Stevens, advised about these supposed threats to non-combatant American lives and property by the Committee of Safety, obliged their request and summoned a company of uniformed U.S. Marines from the USS Boston and 2 companies of U.S. sailors to land on the Kingdom and take up positions at the U.S. Legation, Consulate, and Orion Hall on the afternoon of January 16, 1893. 162 sailors and Marines aboard the USS Boston in Honolulu Harbor came ashore well armed but under orders of neutrality. The sailors and Marines did not enter the palace grounds or take over any buildings, and never fired a shot, but their presence served effectively in intimidating Royalist defenders. Historian William Russ states, "The injunction to prevent fighting of any kind made it impossible for the monarchy to protect itself." Due to the Queen's desire to avoid any collision of armed forces, and perhaps the loss of life for her subjects, and after some deliberation, at the urging of advisers and friends, the Queen ordered her forces to surrender. The Honolulu Rifles took over government buildings, disarmed the Royal Guard, and declared a provisional government.
Aftermath.
A provisional government was set up with the strong support of the Honolulu Rifles, a militia group who had defended the system of government promulgated by the Bayonet Constitution against the Wilcox Rebellion of 1889 that sought to re-establish the 1864 Constitution in which the monarchy held more power. Under this pressure, to avoid any collision of armed forces, Lili'uokalani gave up her throne to the Committee of Safety. Once organized and declared, the policies outlined by the provisional government were 1. Absolute abolition of the monarchy, 2. Establishment of a provisional government until annexation to the United States, 3. The declaration of an executive council of 4 members, 4. Retaining all government officials in their posts except for the Queen, her cabinet and her marshal, and 5. Laws not inconsistent with the new order of things were to continue. The Queen's statement yielding authority, on January 17, 1893, protested the overthrow.
Response. United States.
Newly inaugurated President Cleveland called for an investigation into the overthrow. This investigation was conducted by former Congressman James Henderson Blunt. Blunt concluded in his report on July 17, 1893, United States diplomatic and military representatives had abused their authority and were responsible for the change in government. Minister Stevens was recalled, and the military commander of forces in Hawaii was forced to resign his commission. President Cleveland stated, "Substantial wrong has thus been done which a due regard for our national character as well as the rights of the injured people requires we should endeavor to repair the monarchy." Cleveland further stated in his 1893 State of the Union address that, "Upon the facts developed it seemed to me the only honorable course for our government to pursue was to undo the wrong that had been done by those representing us and to restore as far as practicable the status existing at the time of our forcible intervention." The matter was referred by Cleveland to Congress on December 18, 1893 after the Queen refused to accept amnesty for the traitors as a condition of reinstatement. Hawaii President Sanford Dole was presented a demand for reinstatement by Minister Willis, who had not realized Cleveland had already sent the matter to Congress. Dole flatly refused Cleveland's demands to reinstate the Queen. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee, chaired by Senator John Tyler Morgan, D. Alabama, continued investigation into the matter based both on Blunt's earlier report, affidavits from Hawaii, and testimony provided to the U.S. Senates in Washington, D.C. The Morgan report contradicted the Blunt report, and found Minister Stevens and the U.S. military troops not guilty of involvement in the overthrow. Cleveland became stalled with his earlier efforts to restore the Queen. and adopted a position of recognition of the so-called Provisional Government and the Republic of Hawaii which followed. The Native Hawaiian Study Commission of the United States Congress in its 1983 final report found no historical, legal, or moral obligation for the U.S. government to provide reparations, assistance, or group rights to Native Hawaiians. In 1993, the 100th anniversary of the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii, Congress passed a resolution, which President Clinton signed into law, offering an apology to Native Hawaiians on behalf of the United States for its involvement in the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii. This law is known as the Apology Resolution.
International.
Every government with a diplomatic presence in Hawaii recognized the provisional government within 48 hours of the overthrow via their consulates, including the United States, although the recognition by the United States government and its further response is detailed in the section above on American response. Countries recognizing the new provisional government included Chile, Austria-Hungary, Mexico, Russia, the Netherlands, Imperial Germany, Sweden, Spain, Imperial Japan, Italy, Portugal, the United Kingdom, Denmark, Belgium, China, Peru, and France. When the Republic of Hawaii was declared on July 4, 1894, immediate de facto recognition was given by every nation with diplomatic relations with Hawaii, except for Britain, whose response came in November 1894.
Provisional Government and Republic of Hawaii.
Sanford Dole and his committee declared itself the Provisional Government of the Kingdom of Hawaii on July 17, 1893, removing only the Queen, her cabinet, and her marshal from office. On July 4, 1894 the Republic of Hawaii was proclaimed. Dole was president of both governments. As a republic, it was the intention of the government to campaign for annexation with the United States of America. The rationale behind annexation included a strong economic component. Hawaiian goods and services exported to the mainland would not be subject to American tariffs, and would benefit from domestic bounties, if Hawaii was part of the United States. This was especially important to the Hawaiian economy after the McKinley Act of 1890 reduced the effectiveness of the Reciprocity Treaty of 1875 by raising tariffs on all foreign sugar, and eliminating Hawaii's previous advantage.
Counter-revolution.
A four-day uprising between January 6 and 9, 1895, began with an attempted coup d'état to restore the monarchy, and included battles between royalists and the Republic. Later, after a weapons cache was found on the palace grounds after the attempted rebellion in 1895, Queen Lili'uokalani was placed under arrest, tried by a military tribunal of the Republic of Hawaii, convicted of misprision of treason and imprisoned in her own home.
Annexation.
In 1897, William McKinley succeeded Cleveland as president. A year later he signed the Newlands Resolution, which provided for the annexation of Hawaii on July 7, 1898. The formal ceremony marking the annexation was held at Iolani Palace on August 12, 1898. Almost no native Hawaiians attended, and those few who were on the streets wore royalist ilima blossoms in their hats or hair, and, on their breasts Hawaiian flags with the motto, "Kuhi Aloha, my beloved flag." Most of the 40,000 native Hawaiians, including Lili'uokalani and the royal family, shuttered themselves in their homes, protesting what they considered an illegal transaction. When the news of annexation came, "It was bitterer than death to me," Lili'uokalani's niece, Princess Kaui'olani, told the San Francisco Chronicle. "It was bad enough to lose the throne, but infinitely worse to have the flag go down." The Hawaiian flag was lowered for the last time while the Royal Hawaiian Band played the Hawaiian national anthem, Hawaii Pono'i. The Hawaiian Islands became the territory of Hawaii, a United States territory, with a new government established on February 22, 1900. Sanford Dole was appointed as the first governor. Iolani Palace served as the capital of the Hawaiian government until 1969.